Good afternoon. Welcome back to the Living with ALS webinar series. I am Lori McFerrin with the ALS Association. Before our speaker starts today, I'll offer a few reminders. You can add questions within the chat or Q&A feature at any time during Michelle's presentation. We will address as many questions as possible within our time together. The presentation is being recorded and will be posted on our website within a few days. We'll have both the full webinar and the slideshow. As usual, we will send out a 3-question survey immediately following the presentation. Your feedback matters. We are planning future presentations based on what you've been asking for. Today's presenter is Michelle Frederick. Michelle is a physical therapist and an assistive technology specialist. Michelle works for the ALS Association in the Midwest area. Today, Michelle's focus is on being as prepared as possible in the event of an emergency. Good afternoon, Michelle. Thanks for being here.
You're welcome. Thank you for having me. Well, everybody, welcome and thank you for joining us today. And just like Lori said, I will be speaking today about being prepared for emergencies. And I want to recognize that living with ALS can feel like you're in a constant state of emergency, can it not? So first thing I want to talk about is what am I talking about when I'm talking about an emergency? Well, an emergency is defined as an event that is serious, unexpected, often dangerous, and is requiring immediate action. Today, we're going to cover a couple of different types of emergencies and some general preparedness actions you can take for all types of emergencies. For starters, we're going to talk both about personal emergencies. These are things that really impact just you, your home, your immediate family, but not necessarily the community at large. And we will talk about how you can be ready for your own emergency. But we'll also talk a little bit about more community emergencies where you are not the only person impacted. And in this case, we'll talk some more about how you can help helpers in the event of a regional emergency. Now, in organizing this webinar, I did not break it down in the same way. I'll break it down in a slightly different way. Speaking more about emergencies that are will require you to leave your location and emergencies where you may need to stay in your location, but you might not have the same access to help or power or supplies that you would have in a normal circumstances. And the goal here is just to help you be ready for those types of unexpected events. You're going to get a lot of information here. You can see this guy is thinking about eating the elephant. But my goal is not to add to your worries. Instead, I want to give you some structure for thinking about getting ready for unexpected events and some actionable steps to take to help you feel more ready. And hopefully there will maybe even be some items on the to-do list that you've already done. I don't know if any of you guys do that. I will sometimes add an item to a list, a to-do list that I've already accomplished just so I can cross that off. It helps me feel like I got started. So maybe there will be something like that for you. Before we go to the next slide, we're going to start with preparations for emergencies where you might have to leave your home. What does that mean? When could that happen? It could be talking about if you might have to unexpectedly go to the hospital, if you might, for some reason, need to evacuate your home. Think about like a fire or a flood or something happening to your house, or also a community evacuation. The first thing I want to talk about is a go bag. And I don't know if you might be familiar with that term, but a go bag is something that you would be able to have prepared and just leave prepared to grab quickly on the way out the door if you needed to leave the house, especially if you might not know for how long you'd have to be gone. I'm thinking about maybe a duffel bag or a backpack. And so I'm going to just take a few moments. I've got a lot of words on this slide to kind of look through some things that you might include in your go bag. The first one on the left is information, and number one on that is your medical information list. You're joining this conversation because of living with ALS in your life, and so you have some probably complicated medical information. And we're going to circle back to this in another slide because that's a big chunk of this. Copies of your insurance card, and if you have any advanced directive info, that would be good information to have a copy of in your go bag. Some standard items like a copy of your ID, bank account information, or insurance policy information. Some equipment or supplies that could stay in the bag, maybe a communication board, nutrition or respiratory supplies or medication, maybe an extra set of glasses, some cash, a credit card, extra battery for your phone. And also, I have listed under here some community information, a support network contact info. What does that mean? I mean by that, who could you call on to run an errand for you or complete a task? And the in case of emergency list, who could someone else contact to get help for you if you couldn't communicate? Someone reliable, someone who is familiar with you and your needs. A lot of this information on this page is information that could be stored in your cell phone or on your laptop. But it's really a great idea to also have a printed copy, maybe keeping it in a Ziploc bag in a waterproof storage and just tucked away in that go bag. So on this slide, I mentioned a medical information list. What do I mean by medical information list? Oh my goodness, here's a lot of words. List of any medical conditions, not limited to ALS, that you may have. Any medications that you take, including the name of the medication, dosages, special instructions for taking it, any allergies, your blood type, information about how you communicate, list of any adaptive devices, assistive technology, or durable medical equipment that you use, special instructions such as talking about your ability to, can you lie flat comfortably? Can you swallow pills? Any other special instructions about your particular healthcare. And also a list of providers and their contact information. So maybe your family physician, as well as your neurologist, your pharmacy, respiratory, occupational, physical, speech, and social worker, any of the people that you might meet in your ALS clinic, anybody else that provides healthcare services to you, having a list of them and their contact information. Gathering all that information can feel like a really big, messy task, especially since you get information from a lot of different sources. And so I just wanted to take a few moments to talk about some tools that the ALS Association has that can help you to gather all of this information into one place. The person that you could get these tools from is your care services team member. So that's the person that you have in mind when you think of the ALS Association, the person that you've talked to or met in person. Reach out to them and they can help you to find these resources. They can be downloaded and printed or ordered as a paper copy, and they come to you at no cost. So there's three things on this list. The first one is a medical information packet. This is when it's printed out or when it comes, it is a multi-page form that asks questions about all of the pieces of information on the last slide, and you can just fill in the blanks. It also has some specific information that is related to providing healthcare for people living with ALS that would be useful to healthcare or hospital providers, especially if they were unfamiliar. And it includes a letterboard or a rapid access means of communication. So that's a big paper-sized packet. There's another resource that is called a key medical information card, and these are a small wallet-sized card that is kind of like an accordion card. It opens up, and there is room on this one to fill in information about your physician and emergency contacts. It has some limited information for healthcare providers, and it contains a letterboard as well. And this same information is also available as an app for your smartphone. And that can be found in the Apple App Store, Google Play under ALS Key Medical Information. So you can organize your information any way you like, but I just wanted to share that there are some tools that can help you to gather all of that information into one place. So next I want to go back to that go bag. because it's great to have some things together and ready, but you may have some things that you need to be using on a daily basis. It's not practical to keep it in a bag someplace. They might be too big, or they might be perishable, or you may not have enough to store them in multiple places. So let's talk about also having a go list. And I would keep this with your go bag. These are some other important items that you might want to bring if you know that you have to leave your home for a period of time. Having this list all together helps make sure that you don't forget anything in a crisis. You might look at this list, in the moment and determine that you don't need all of the items on the list, but this is so much better than forgetting an important item. And I'm going to run through these a little bit as well. For equipment, we have things listed: mobility, whether you might use a cane, a walker, a wheelchair, something to help you with moving around. And also bear in mind that if you have to leave an emergency, you may not have time uh, for moving the way that you typically would, or you may have to move in circumstances that would be a little bit more challenging. Anything that you need for showering or using the restroom, any equipment that you use for communication, and any daily living aids or tools for daily living. Additional equipment would be if you have any respiratory equipment, and I especially want to mention your mask here. A lot of people might assume correctly that a hospital would have respiratory equipment available if you ended up having to go to the hospital. But if you use any respiratory equipment and it includes a mask, you might recall that it sometimes takes a lot of fitting to get a good match for your face. And so if you have a mask that works well for you, that's definitely worth bringing along. Feeding pump or feeding supplies, and backup batteries or chargers for any powered equipment that you have. You might also list on your go list any medications that didn't go, wouldn't go in the bag otherwise, nutrition supplies, or anything else that needs refrigeration, or items that you have in too limited of a supply to keep in the go bag. And again, I mentioned community on here, identifying who in your network could maybe locate and bring supplies that had to get left behind. And I would not have thought of this without researching it. Maybe taking photos of pieces of equipment as well as photos of the settings. Why would you do that? Well, if someone had to go to your home to pick up an item for you, um, and they weren't familiar with your medical equipment, having a picture to match would be great. And having photos of the settings would ensure that if something gets bumped or changed in transport, that it could be set back to the correct settings. Bonus points if you even were to laminate and attach to each of your device that has settings some instructions for assembly and operation. This is all assuming that you might not be able to give the instructions yourself. Now, we've talked about things like supplies in kind of a general way, but since ALS comes with such a variety of challenges, I wanted to speak to a couple of different specific issues that might might cause you to think about some additional preparations you might want to do. The categories that I am going to talk about are communication, mobility, and respiratory issues. So if you have any issues with communication, you would do well to plan how you will communicate with unfamiliar helpers if you don't have your usual communication device, assuming that you use one. Something to think about is you might be the person reaching out for emergency assistance. If something happens to a loved one or caregiver, it might not be someone necessarily calling for help for you. Carry a printed card or store or record some info on your phone that can be used to inform first responders and others about your needs. Store communication aids in all of your emergency kits, whether that's pardon me, paper and writing materials, copies of a word or letter board, or some pre-printed phrases. Make sure your emergency health info or card packet explains your best method of communication. And have a backup power source ready if you use a communication device, a computer, a laptop, etc., for your communication. If you have mobility challenges, first, seems obvious, keep your mobility aids close at hand. The next one may be a little less obvious. Know how to instruct someone how to assist you if you need to leave your devices behind. Thinking about, for example, if you had to go quickly and your power wheelchair couldn't come along, what kind of instructions would you give someone to help you be well supported and comfortable? Make sure that go bag that we talked about is in an easy to access place. Have extra batteries or an alternative charging plan for power wheelchairs. Keep an extra wheelchair, manual or transport wheelchair, as a backup if at all possible, even if you would rarely use it. If you have inflated tires, keeping a tire patch bag in your or a tire patch kit in your go bag would be a good idea. You want to keep instructions with all equipment and keep a list of serial numbers of your equipment in case repairs are needed or items get mixed up. And then I want to talk just a little bit about if you have respiratory challenges. The first one I have mentioned here is securing equipment so it doesn't fall or get damaged. I'm thinking specifically, you might have a piece of equipment that sits at your bedside table, no problem. But if you had to go somewhere with it, there might be some pieces and parts, and it might be a little bit fragile. So having a bag that it could go into to be carried or attached to your wheelchair. Have backup or alternative power sources prepared. Test your backup batteries and alternate power sources on a schedule and know how long those batteries will last. Make sure that someone in your support network knows how to operate and safely move your equipment. And again, like with the others, attach laminated instructions. This one is a good one. Register with your utility or electric company for being on a priority list for power restoration in the event of an outage. And if you are in an area that is prone to power outages, consider a generator or other backup power supply. So now we're going to talk, switch gears a little bit again, some practical things to have thought through if you would ever need to evacuate your home. ALS comes with mobility challenges, as you know, and so it's really important, even more important, to periodically review and update a plan for exiting your home that matches your movement abilities. You want to practice this plan at least twice a year or anytime there's a change, and that could be a change in your physical status and your method of moving. It could be if you change your home layout or move homes, if you have different caregivers involved, and be sure to include the caregivers in this evacuation strategy. If it's possible, store some sort of backup wheelchair or other equipment, either with a neighbor or an offsite location for quick access. A lot of people keep a transport wheelchair in the trunk of their car, just in case. Now, we would hope not, but it does happen. Hurricane season is an example I think of, that you might have to evacuate not just your home, but your community. And so that can get really complicated with ALS as well. Be sure to listen to the radio or television for the location of emergency shelters and make note of which of those shelters would be accessible for people living with a disability. If you're going to have to leave your home or your community, wear appropriate clothing for the weather. You might be spending a lot of time indoors and might not be doing a lot of walking, but you want to be sure that you have a jacket if it's cold out, and put on some sturdy footwear, even if you are not typically walking, to protect your feet. Be sure to take those emergency supplies, the go bag and the go list, along, and confirm when you arrive at a community shelter that they are prepared to meet your needs. And then, of course, make sure your support network knows where you are and how you're doing. With some emergencies, you need to stay put. You might have experienced a shelter-in-place order for some type of community emergency, or I can think also of weather-related emergencies that would necessitate sheltering in place, such as a tornado or sometimes winter weather. And so if you need to be prepared to shelter in place, much like evacuating your home, you need to identify and practice a plan for situations that could arise. Where in my home do I need to go if I need to go somewhere? And how am I going to get there? With the recent weather outbreak in the Midwest, I think of tornado season and having a backup plan if your previous strategy was to always go to the basement, but going to the basement is not possible. Identifying where in your home you could go, that would be the most protected space and how you're going to get there. Think about what sort of supplies you need for an hour, for a day, for longer, and where you would store them so that you would be able to access them if needed. And you may need to reassess this seasonally. And then finally, know how to connect and start backup power if you have it to supply your emergency medical or your essential medical equipment. You feeling a little overwhelmed? I really hope you are not. You can definitely pick one thing to address at a time. And most of the things on this list are about planning more than they are about purchasing or acquiring items. So it doesn't require a lot of supplies or a lot of shopping. Over the next couple of pages, though, I would love to go over a couple of tasks that you could probably do today or this week, and even just doing one thing is better than nothing. So I'm going to spend a little time on these next couple of slides. These are the easy ones. These are the 5-minute ones. And these are the ones that are smart for all of us to do no matter what. Um, you may have already done this. Might be one that you could write on your list and check it right off. Make sure that you have emergency or weather alerts that come to your phone in the event of tornadoes, weather issues. Make sure detectors in your home work, whether it's carbon monoxide or fire detectors, and also identify evacuation routes from your home in case of, for example, a fire. These might take just a little bit longer because all of them involve probably spending a little time on the phone and connecting with a real person in real life. But they're not terribly burdensome tasks. The first one says call local emergency responders. Why would I do that if I'm not having an emergency right now? First of all, don't call 911. You call the non-emergency line. But if you have got any special information that would be useful to emergency personnel that might respond to your home, you can share that ahead of time and they can have that on file so that if they respond to emergency in your home, they don't make a mistake. The kinds of things you might want to let them know is if you have some changes with your speaking ability or your communication. That way they don't misunderstand the situation on arrival and think that whatever is changing your speech or your voice is the source of the emergency. The other one is letting them know too if there's any special instructions an ambulance crew might need to know. And for example, if you don't tolerate being laid flat, they would want to know that ahead of time. If your doctor has any special instructions for you related to use of oxygen, those kinds of things are the kinds of things that they could have on file. And so if they came to your home, they would be prepared that there is information there. Also on this list of things that you would want to let them know would be if you have got any advanced directives in place, and where they would locate those things. So I'll go to the top right here, call local or county emergency preparedness office. That sounds like it's doing the same thing, but we're really not quite. The local county emergency preparedness office is kind of who would coordinate a response to a community disaster like a tornado or a fire. And the kind of information they would want to know, for example, would be if you use a power wheelchair, they would want to know that because they would send different help to your home to help you evacuate than they might otherwise do. So that would be more about helping the kinds of help you would need in a larger scale disaster. And then finally, I have on here contacting your electric or utility service provider. And I did mention that a little bit ago, especially if you have got some respiratory involvement and use life-sustaining equipment that relies on power. You can be, if they have such a list, you can be put on the list for prioritizing restoring power. So this went a little faster than I expected, but I do hope that I've covered some information that you might not have thought of. I know that I did not cover every eventuality or unique preparation that you might need to do, but I really hope that it gives you a little framework for preparing, and that when something serious, unexpected, potentially dangerous, and requiring immediate action occurs, you will be as ready as anyone can be. So if you can just do one thing at a time, that is a great step towards being prepared. And Lori, that was a little bit shorter than I anticipated, but I would love to answer questions if anybody has got some.
Thanks, Michelle. I definitely have some, but I want to remind folks to go to the chat or the Q&A and let us know if you have any that might, any questions that might pertain to your situation. Michelle, first of all, I loved the go list. As you were talking about the list, I was thinking that that would be a great place to start. I'm thinking for, you know, even for vacation, what a great way to plan for vacation is to think about what do I use at home that they're not likely to have at that Airbnb, so what should come with me? So yes,
Absolutely.
this is good for emergency, but it's good to make vacations go well too.
I always have a list when I'm thinking about leaving the house. I'm not ever thinking about leaving the house in an emergency situation, but having that list lets you make a decision in the moment that isn't a decision of, oh no, didn't bring the thing I need. You're much better off having brought something that you didn't need.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was also thinking how beneficial it would be if you have a caregiver in your life who deserves and needs a break from time to time. If you have a list that can kind of guide someone who is newer to your situation, that they can follow, okay, this is something you need, or taking pictures. So like you said, if somebody's got to go back and grab something, I like that idea a lot. I think for me, having a list, because some of the things in the bag, as much as I like the idea of the go bag, some things you can't keep in there all the time.
Yes,
So that
absolutely.
that list is a reminder. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about some of the tools that are available on the ALS.org website. I know that you've referred people to those a lot.
I wonder if I can go back to that screen. Oh, there it is. Are you guys seeing that? I don't even know, but I'm
Yes,
looking at it.
yes.
Yeah, I can talk a little bit more about that. So these are some tools that were created by some very wise people in the ALS Association that really make gathering all of your medical information together in one place a whole lot easier. That medical information packet, there is the website is listed down here. I know nobody probably has time to write out all the little bits and pieces of a website, but your care services person, your care services coordinator, your navigator, your care services specialist, they go by a lot of different names. They will know how to get to this website. They can help you to get there. You can download these and just print them off on your computer at home, but you can also request that a copy, a packet be sent to you, and that's at no cost. But it really is a very nice, once again, having an organized, document to fill out helps you to not miss or forget some important information. It just, in a very organized way, asks all those questions about who provides this and what is your dosage and when do you need to take it and what else do you need to know about taking care of me person, I the person with ALS. So having that packet is a great tool. It's a little bit intimidating anytime to try to sit down and gather all of your medical information together. But once it is, and if you just maintain it as changes happen, what a lovely tool to have at hand, and useful for your care providers too.
Yeah, absolutely. And so some people, you mentioned the app, some people are going to be more comfortable than putting that in their phone. But either way, it sounds like bringing that information packet or updating your app when you're at clinic or at a doctor's office, if you've had a change and are using a new piece of equipment, are there other times you can think of that we want to make sure we have that packet so it stays updated?
Yeah, absolutely. If you a medication changes, if you have a different provider, if you start using something new, if you start using a new piece of equipment, whether it's respiratory or to help you, with mobility, if if you have had some change in your communication style, just making note of that, of like, this is my preference, and if that's not available, this also works. So again, you may or may not be in a position to relay all of this information, or your caregiver who knows you well might not be in a position to relay all this information. It's just so nice to have it all in one place.
It really is. Thank you. One of the things, because we have some extra time and I'm not seeing specific questions, so I want to continue to use your time to benefit all of us. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about your specific role with the association, and where does your PT background come in and the AT, assistive technology piece?
So yeah, I've been with the association about a year and a half. I work in the middle part of the country in the Midwest, and with the ALS Association, it has got a lot of different moving pieces to it. I'm a physical therapist by background, and about a year and a half ago or a year ago, I tested to be also an assistive technology professional. So as a physical therapist, I worked with all kinds of people in all kinds of settings, and always one of my personal passions was connecting people with the tools they need to do what they need to do. So that and my assistive technology background puts me in a good position to help with our nationwide equipment program. We have got lending closets of specific types of equipment throughout the country, for when insurance that is not meeting the need in the moment, that we can loan specific pieces of equipment to people. And so part of my job is to help ensure that those things are where they belong and that they get to where they need to go. But also visiting with individuals about their needs and what's going on, and helping to kind of maybe help match them. Of course, their clinicians, at clinic, their PTs and their OTs are going to have the best knowledge, and the final word of what's going to meet the need. But even just to share information about, here's some tools that people often use to solve the problem you're experiencing. I can have conversations with people and show them these tools so that they can have informed conversations with their team as well. I also participate in a program that does individual virtual visits to people's homes, where we can look at the home, at your home setup, and identify parts of your home that might be a challenge, for accessibility or for safety, and then also talk about what are your options for addressing those challenges. So I stay pretty busy.
Yeah, it sounds like it. So when you're talking about the virtual visits, you're talking about the ALS Association's virtual home.
Home safety and modification assessment program. Yeah.
Okay, and that's free to anyone who needs a home safety
Mhm.
assessment
Yep. Yep.
done by knowledgeable folks.
Yes.
And from what I understand, literally, if you've got someone, if you or someone you know is able to walk through the home, you on the other end would be taking a look at helping them address some of their potential hazards or challenges, and then recommend maybe moving a room or recommend some equipment to
Yeah,
better
yeah,
access
really
the
can talk
room.
about, like, what is your budget? Because budget is a big deal, that if having ALS is expensive, and what are your so what are your options, and what are the things that would be possible to address this, whether it's adding a piece of equipment, or adjusting how you have your home organized, or, you know, looking to access a community service that might help you make some changes to your home, those kinds of things.
Yeah, that sounds really helpful. And sometimes, I've learned just through experience, sometimes having a new perspective will make me think of a whole different entryway, or, it doesn't have to be this hard. Use,
Have to be
instead
the
of a
way we always
bathroom
do it. Yeah,
overhaul, use a tub buddy system or something. So always great to have another perspective.
definitely, definitely. And if you don't live in this world of equipment and home modifications, you would have no reason to know so many pieces of equipment exist to help.
Right. Well, that's really helpful. I'm gonna put out one more request for any questions or any thoughts that people have. Feel free to use the chat or the Q&A. And in the unless we see something come in, I'm just going to remind folks that we meet monthly, and next month's topic is voice banking and message banking. I know that's something that has been requested. In June, we have ALS. Oh, good, we've got a raised hand. To finish my thought, in June, we have exercise and ALS. How much is too much? How much can I get away with? So some great topics. And thanks to your survey responses, people are sharing topics, and we're finding some speakers for those. So do fill out today's survey so that we can get your ideas on future topics. And let me see. So folks have their hands up. I'm hoping I'll be able to, any chance folks can put that in a chat? Can you put your question or comment in a chat or the Q&A so that we can access your questions? While folks are working on that, Michelle, it looks like two folks were interested with questions. I just need for them to write those out for us. And before people leave us, I want to remind you this has been recorded, and you'll be able to access it on our website in a day or two, and the information that Michelle has talked about will be accessible as well. I am unfortunately not seeing those questions come through. So for your specific questions, if you weren't able to get those to us today, please follow up directly with your care services team. And Michelle, I'm going to just say thank you for giving us your time and your expertise. Thanks for helping us prepare to be a little safer and prepared in case an emergency happens.
Well, Lori, thank you so much too. I do see in the Q&A something maybe now.
Oh, good.
It says chat is disabled, is what it says.
So Tamara's on. She might be able to help us with that. Tamara, if you can give us maybe a thumbs up when the chat is working.
I just turned it on.
Okay, thank you. So folks, we'll stick around for a couple of minutes for those of you who have questions. Thank you for letting us know that wasn't working. All right, and for those of you who are hopping off, just please respond to our survey and give us some feedback for how we did today and what we can bring you in the future. And I'm still not seeing anything there, so I don't want to take up everyone's time. Thank you again, Michelle, for folks who I just wanted to, oh, this is great. I just wanted to give a shout out to Michelle for all the wonderful advice and suggestions she has shared with me to help my spouse. That's nice.
That made my day.
Michelle does a great job. So thank you, Claudia. For the rest of you, please reach out to us at your local offices for support with your emergency preparedness. Difficult to get to the hospital in a wheelchair. Oh, let's talk a little bit about that for Mary.
Yeah, so I'm not sure of the circumstance if you're thinking or talking about if you are needing to Oh, we need dictation. We need to be able to speak to text, she says. Got a couple of things here. So I'm not sure if you are thinking of like getting into an ambulance or getting from an ambulance into the hospital or getting yourself to the hospital. I would say for sure this would fall under the circumstances, especially if you have a local hospital, of maybe reaching out at a non-emergency time to make a plan with them, or again calling the non-emergency line, for your local fire and rescue to make a plan for the circumstance. And I see that you say I called 911 ambulance designated from my home. And so I don't know quite the circumstances, Claudia, but definitely working, I think, with your local ALS provider might be helpful. Your clinic team might have some good insights for you. And again, reaching out to the non-emergency line to do some planning ahead, so that you're not stuck in what sounds like it wasn't a great circumstance there.
Only a
Liz?
no designated had enough ambulance space, Mary says.
I would say that falls a little bit out of my knowledge.
And that's
Yeah,
fair. If anybody has thoughts about that, please do share. Michelle, we know that you've got a lot of great information, but not necessarily, for every situation. So if anybody has any thoughts for Mary in regard to ambulance transportation or wheelchair to hospital, let us know. And I do want to respond to Georgiana's note in the question and answer. Dictation, I don't know, Tamara, if you're able to unmute folks so that Georgiana can ask her question. And if not, one of us is happy to follow up with Georgiana directly.
Hi, yeah. I'm able to allow people to talk, so I can go ahead and do that.
Oh, beautiful. So do you see Georgiana has a question for us?
Yes.
Yeah. Hello?
Hi.
Hi. Yeah.
Thanks for being patient with us.
Oh, that's okay. Thanks for staying on.
Yeah.
I can't type. So I was thinking if you had a dictaphone on your question and answer thing, I would be able to just speak my words and type it in.
Okay.
And I was told to call 911, say this is not an emergency, but I want you to put on your list that if you get a call from 911, I can give them my code to get into the front door to my house.
great point. And another great piece of information if you are doing some preparing for emergency responders, for them to know the best way to get into your home without hopefully breaking anything. Yeah.
Right. Okay, yeah, I was confused when you said don't call 911. But in that case, I guess it's okay.
Yeah, I have always been told to call the non-emergency line, but if you were advised to call 911 to give them that information, I'm not sure in your community that must have been the correct response then.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. It
Mhm.
looks like Claudia has her hand up as well. And so Tamara, if you want to help Claudia out, we'll see if we can address her question.
I think that might have been Claudia that had the kind words a minute ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you folks for chiming in. And I did see one other, was it a chat? One other comment, speaking of dictating questions, that would be good. I listened today rather than being on Zoom. And so that's a really great reminder that people join us in different ways. So thank you for that. What is the one right above that? Let's see. So Kelly tells us, I'm going to read this chat that Kelly has shared. For those of you interested, the federal government, CMS, Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services, is currently seeking comments through May 9th about wheelchairs regarding air travel. We need CMS to hear from you. And so she shares a link to submit comments. And so hopefully if you're interested, you can click on that link now, share your thoughts while CMS is open for those kinds of comments. Good topic. I registered with the fire department. Doctor had to sign it. Thank you, Mary, for letting us know that.
Yeah, that's helpful. And then that just reinforces that planning ahead rather in the moment is really helpful there.
Well, some really great thoughts, some good food for thought. We know that as a community, we've got a whole lot more knowledge than one-on-one. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and just
Mary's,
that your care services staff, your local care services staff are going to be most familiar with the types of emergencies that occur in your communities. They will likely be able to help connect you with the right people to do some of that planning with in your community as well.
yeah. And Mary offers a reminder, I registered with utilities as well. So
Good job,
great
Mary. Cross it
great
off your list.
conversation. Sorry, Michelle.
No, I just said cross it off your list. You did good. You did
That's
well.
right. So good. All right. Well, thank you all. Thanks, Tamara, behind the scenes for getting us through and getting others through, which is really important. Michelle, thank you again. And thank you all for joining us. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks,
Thank you,
Leslie.
everyone.
Take care.